I'm Glen Rowe, and I'm the District 5810 Foundation Chair. And going around the district, I have found that most of the Rotarians do not know what the foundation is. They have trouble distinguishing it from Rotary itself. So this presentation is a description and tells what the Rotary Foundation is. Rotary is a 501c4 organization, which in the Internal Revenue Code defines civic organizations. Rotary has people. It has no money. It is a civic organization made of people that do good work. The Rotary Foundation is a 501c3 organization, which is, as you well know, it's a charitable organization. It has no people. It has money. It is Rotary's money arm. It's what funds all the good work that we do. And the Rotary Foundation is just a big tub of money. And like your household tubs of money, you will have a checking account, you will have a savings account, maybe an investment account. Well, that's the way the Rotary Foundation operates. So it starts as just a big tub of money, and in that it has an annual program fund, or you may see the word share, S-H-A-R-E sometimes, but that is the fund that we spend our money at the district level from. That's the only place that we get money. Well, it's not the only place, but that's the major place that we get money to spend every year on our district grants and global grants. That's what we have to spend. Another one is the Polio Plus Fund. That is a restricted fund that when you contribute money to the Polio Plus Fund, by law, the only place that money can go is to the eradication of polio. And the other fund in the foundation is the permanent fund. Now, this fund is funded pretty much by dead people. These are folks that have chosen to give a bequest to the foundation at their demise. They will make a codicil to their will, and they will cut part of their estate out, and they will give it to the Rotary Foundation. So those are the three funds that are in the foundation. You can contribute to any one of the three. You can write a check, you can contribute to any one of the three, but there's a restriction on your contributions. The money from these go from the annual fund and from the earnings of the permanent fund. They go into our grant pool. That's where we get the money, and that's the money that we have to spend each year. And then, of course, Polio Plus goes to the polio eradication program.
And that's earmarked, so it can only go?
It can only go to the polio eradication fund. Now, Rotary, being a civic organization, we can't pay people, but we can recognize you, and that's what Rotary does, is it recognizes folks. So for every $1,000 that you contribute either to the annual program fund or the Polio Plus Fund, then you're recognized as a Paul Harris Fellow for each $1,000. How can you get there? How can you get to the Paul Harris Fellowship level? You can do every Rotarian every year, which is $100 every year to the Rotary Foundation, and in 10 years, you will become a Paul Harris Fellow. Another way is to join the Paul Harris Society. That steps up. That's $1,000 a year, and obviously, if you do that for 1 year, you will become a Paul Harris Fellow at the end of your year. At the end of the next year, you will become a multiple Paul Harris Fellow. The every Rotarian every year costs you 73 cents a day. I don't think there's anybody in Rotary that can't afford 73 cents a day. The Paul Harris Society is $2.73 a day. Probably cheaper than what we spend on a Starbucks. It's more than, or less probably, than you spend on a good dinner on an average monthly contribution. Now then, you can write a check to the Rotary Foundation Either way, every Rotarian every year, you can write a $100 check, send it in to the Rotary Foundation. You can write a $1,000 check and send it in to the Rotary Foundation. Another way to do it is many clubs will allow you to put it on their dues statement, and you pay it through your dues. Then the club treasurer, at the end of a quarter, sends that to the Rotary Foundation in your name, and you get credit for that. But the one that I prefer that you do is complete a Rotary Direct form and let it charge your credit card. Set it up for $85 a month, pay your credit card. The charge goes straight to the Rotary Foundation. 1 year later, you will become a Paul Harris Fellow. The beautiful part of the Rotary Direct is you can choose how much and how often you want your credit card charged. For example, you can charge it $10 a month, $25 a month. You can charge it $250 a quarter or $1,000 a year. It's pretty much your choice, but if you set it up on your credit card, you will forget about it, which is a good thing, and you will pay it, and you will become a Paul Harris Fellow. And that is the way that I would like to see, and most Rotarians that contribute to the foundation would like to see you do it. Now, I'm going to tell you how you can get help becoming a Paul Harris Fellow. For each dollar that you contribute to the Rotary Foundation, you receive 2 points. One of those points is for your Paul Harris recognition, and the other point is to give away. And you can use that. Most, or not most, but many clubs, many individuals use that to recognize community leaders that are perhaps not Rotarians and give them 1,000 points, or give the Paul Harris recognition to those folks that do good in the community and need to be recognized. But you can use that to help someone in your club to become a Paul Harris Fellow. You can trade points, help someone else to become a Paul Harris Fellow or get to the next level of multiple Paul Harris recognition. Offer to give, I would suggest you offer for one. You offer to give one point of yours for each dollar contributed to the Rotary Foundation. That means that if somebody is brand new Rotarian, they hear about the Paul Harris Fellowship, they hear about the foundation, they want to contribute and be recognized, they don't have $1,000, they can write a $500 check, you can give them 500 of your points, and lo and behold, they're Paul Harris Fellows. You can get someone in your club that has points, you have points, you want to get to the next level, you need $500 or 500 points to get to the next level, somebody else may need 300, you trade 150 of your points, they give you 250 of theirs, both of you become the next level of Paul Harris. It's a win-win for everybody involved. And that's why I encourage trading points and making those contributions to the foundation. Why is all this important? Because without your support, there is no money to pay for the good work that we do. And remember, the Rotary Foundation is your foundation. It is funded by you, and it is spent by you. Yeah, there's a little bit of money that comes into the foundation from non-Rotarians and various sources, but the majority of the money comes from you and is spent by you, and it comes back to you, to your club, and you get to choose where and how you want to spend the money. Because remember, it's your money, and you gave it 3 years ago. Now, here's the way the grant system works. Let's assume that 3 years ago, this district gave $300,000 in contributions to the annual program fund. This is only the annual program fund. None of this money was contributed to Polio Plus. Polio Plus has to be spent some other way. So 3 years ago, the district raised $300,000, and this year it comes out. $150,000 of it is given directly back to the district, called district designated funds. These funds then can be divided up to 50% for the district grants. Those are the grants that you spend in your community every year. Those are the one-page applications that you make, turn them into the district. If they're approved, then you get to spend those in your community. The other half of the money goes to global grants, or it can go to Polio Plus if the district decides to allocate some there, and to Rotary Peace Centers. And any carryovers transfers to the next year. This money is always ours, always there to be spent. It has to be spent on global grants or polio or Rotary Peace Fellows if it rolls forward. It can't go back into district grants. District grants are annual. They're 1 year. Every year that the money comes out, it gets cut in half, and that's how much gets spent. Everything under the new grant model is a grant, everything. When we apply for that $75,000 to the Rotary Foundation, that is a lump sum grant that the Rotary Foundation debits our bank account, and that's where we spend it at the club level. If you get a global grant, the money is allocated to that grant. There is a grant number, and the money will be deposited in the bank account. If it's a vocational training team, then the money will be debited into a specific account that is targeted for that vocational training team, and all monies from global grant, all monies from grants have to be reported back to the Rotary Foundation in Evanston, Illinois, and they have to be audited and approved, or have to be closed with the foundation. And if you don't close them, we don't get any more grants until they're closed after a 2-year period. Now, the district grants, the $75,000, local Rotary clubs compete for up to $4,000 per community project. And district award depends on the Rotary Club per capita contribution to the Rotary Foundation at least equal to the average of the district's per capita contribution. That's a lot of words. Here's what it means. All clubs in the district contribute to the Rotary Foundation. They send their money to Evanston, Illinois. At the end of the year, the Rotary Foundation knows how much money that this district has sent to them. They've got cash in the bank. They know how many people are in the district. They simply divide the number of people into the dollars, and that becomes a per capita average for the district. In order to compete for the $4,000, the club has to equal or exceed that per capita average for the district. That's what that means. Last year, it was $125 per Rotarian in District 5810. So if your club has 30 members, and if you contributed $3,000, then your average was $100, not $125. So you didn't make it. And we don't know what the per capita contributions for 2014 and 2015 will be until after the end of the year, prior to July 31, when the Rotary Foundation notifies us and says, this is your per capita. And at that point, we take the clubs and all of the district grants, and we break them into 2 tiers, Tier 1 and Tier 2. And Tier 1 clubs are the ones that equal or exceed the per capita giving, and they get to share in 75% of the allocation, and the clubs below that share in 25% of the allocation.